He lost everything in a single moment. His family, his friends, the respect he once held. All because of one reckless decision. I watched him fall, powerless to stop the spiral. And yet, there was a lesson buried in the ruins. A truth so painful it would haunt him for the rest of his life. This is the story of that mistake. The choices that led him here. And the harsh, unforgettable lesson he learned when it was too late to turn back. He was always the life of the room. Charming, confident, and impossibly sure of himself. Everyone admired him, envied him even. But no one really knew the man behind the smile. I first met him at a small family gathering. Laughter echoing through the modest house. The aroma of home-cooked meals. The warmth of relatives exchanging stories. He stood there, effortlessly commanding attention. Yet I noticed a flicker in his eyes. A hint of restlessness. A subtle longing for something more than this ordinary life. He was close to his younger brother. Protective, teasing, always the older sibling who seemed invincible. But even then I could see cracks in the bond. Small arguments brushed aside. Unspoken resentment lingering beneath the surface. Work was the same story. Everyone relied on him, praised his quick thinking, his ability to take charge. He thrived on responsibility. And yet sometimes, very quietly, I could see doubt creeping in. The fear that one wrong move could unravel everything he had built. He had a partner who adored him, a woman patient and kind. But her love sometimes blinded her to his impatience, his pride, his occasional carelessness. And though she believed in him completely, a part of me wondered if even she could withstand the weight of his choices when the time came. It was a life that looked perfect from the outside. Laughter, work, success, admiration, love. But behind closed doors, subtle tension brewed. Fleeting arguments, long silences, jealousy disguised as humor. Small warnings that something was quietly amiss. One evening, I noticed him staring at the night sky from his balcony. Alone. A distant look on his face. The wind tousling his hair. I didn't know then. But that night was the calm before the storm. The last moment of normalcy before his life shifted in ways he could never predict. And as I left him that night, I felt a chill I couldn't explain. A sense that everything we knew about him was about to be challenged. And the man everyone admired was about to face the consequences of one devastating choice. The next morning, he woke early as usual. Coffee in hand. Checking emails, messages, and schedules. The familiar hum of routine around him. Colleagues greeting him with smiles. Admiration in their eyes. Yet beneath it all, a subtle tension lingered. A whispered worry that his decisions carried weight far beyond what he realized. Each choice seemed small, insignificant even. But together, they were building toward something irreversible. At work he joked with his team, laughed at their mistakes, celebrated their successes. And yet, I could see it in the way he avoided certain calls, delayed certain reports, an unease hidden behind confidence. Back home, the evenings were quieter. His partner preparing dinner, the soft clinking of utensils. He would sit, distant for moments, lost in thought, reflecting on choices he barely understood were mistakes in waiting. Friends would come by, praising his achievements, asking for advice, wanting his insight. He smiled, reassured them. And yet, in private, he questioned whether he was truly deserving of their admiration. One night, his younger brother came over. Playful banter turned slightly tense. Comment misunderstood. Laughter forced. A small warning sign of cracks in their bond. He brushed it off, thinking it temporary. Harmless. But I knew. These cracks often grow unnoticed until it's too late. I noticed him staring at his phone longer than usual. Messages unanswered. Calls avoided. Something was tugging at his conscience. A secret buried under pride. Under routine. Under the illusion that everything was fine. Even his partner sensed it. A quiet question carefully framed. Are you sure everything's all right? He smiled, reassured her, promised it was nothing. But in that moment, I saw the tension behind his eyes, a hint of guilt, a shadow of a decision he hadn't yet faced. And as the days passed, tension grew, like a storm forming quietly in the distance. No one could see it coming. Not his family, not his friends, not even he himself fully. He was still the same man everyone admired. Charming, capable, and seemingly invincible. Yet I could feel the weight of the choice that would soon unravel everything, looming just over the horizon. Days turned into weeks. The rhythm of life continued. Work, family, friends, all seemingly normal. Yet beneath the surface, the unease grew. He began staying later at the office, answering fewer calls, spending more time alone. Some colleagues noticed, subtle questions, fleeting glances. But no one pressed, because he had always been capable, always in control. At home, the dinners became quieter. His partner's gentle concerns met with polite reassurances. "I'm just tired. Work was long today. Nothing to worry about." He smiled, nodded. Yet the weight behind those words grew heavier with each passing day. I watched as small arguments arose with his brother. Minor disagreements, quickly smoothed over. Yet the undercurrent was there. A tension neither acknowledged. A warning that even the strongest bonds could strain under hidden choices. One afternoon, he found himself alone in the park, watching children play, families laugh. He should have felt content, proud of the life he had built. But instead, a gnawing emptiness tugged at him. A sense that something vital had been overlooked. His thoughts drifted to past decisions. Moments when he had chosen convenience over truth, pride over honesty. Little compromises that seemed harmless at the time. Yet now, like threads unraveling, they threatened to expose the flaw in his seemingly perfect life. Even at work, the mistakes were subtle. Miscalculations, delayed reports, minor oversights. Nothing catastrophic yet, but enough to set in motion a chain of events that could not be undone. He began avoiding friends. Excuses grew frequent. Too busy. Tired. Maybe next week. And slowly those friends stopped calling. The laughter faded. The shared moments of camaraderie disappeared into routine and distance. One evening, his partner found him staring blankly at the wall. Her voice gentle. "Talk to me. What's wrong?" He shook his head, smiled faintly. "Nothing. I'm fine. Just thinking about work." But I knew, even then, that he was thinking about the choice that would soon define his life. The mistake that would shatter everything. And as night fell, the quiet settled over his home. The calm before the storm. A silence filled with unspoken fears, hidden truths, and the foreshadowing of a moment when life as he knew it would unravel completely. The days grew heavier, responsibilities piling up, the weight of expectations pressing down on him. And still he carried a secret burden. At work, whispers began to circulate. Minor mistakes noticed by others. Subtle hints of discontent. Yet he smiled through it all, maintaining the facade of control. Home was no longer a sanctuary. Quiet tension hung in the air. His partner's subtle glances, the unasked questions, the waiting for an explanation. He offered none, hoping the storm would pass unnoticed. Even his brother sensed the change. Small comments met with defensiveness. Laughter that sounded forced. A growing distance that neither wanted to acknowledge. One evening, he found himself walking alone along the riverbank, the reflection of the city lights shimmering in the water. His mind racing. The choices, the compromises, the moments of pride that now felt like mistakes. He remembered advice from mentors. Warnings he had ignored. Opportunities he had overlooked. And realized that life was a delicate balance. A single misstep could unravel it all. Night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The quiet ticking of the clock echoing through the room. A reminder that time moves forward. regardless of our mistakes. He began to notice patterns. Small errors, forgotten promises, overlooked responsibilities. Each one harmless alone, but together, forming the prelude to a catastrophe. And then came the warning signs no one could ignore. The subtle tremor in his confidence. The hesitation in his decisions. The doubt creeping into his once steady mind. Friends and colleagues tried to reach him. Messages unanswered. Calls ignored. Concern growing. But he believed he could manage it alone. That the storm could be weathered without exposing the truth. But deep down, he knew. The moment of reckoning was approaching. A moment when all the minor cracks would become fractures. When the life he had built on trust, skill, and confidence could collapse in an instant. And as he looked out the window that night, city lights twinkling, stars barely visible, he felt a chill. An unshakable sense that life as he knew it was about to change forever. The weekend arrived. The quiet of home juxtaposed with the storm brewing inside him. He went through the motions. Family dinner, laughter, polite conversation. But it felt hollow. Every smile forced. Every word measured. Even his partner sensed it. The subtle distance. The way he seemed lost in thought. And she asked carefully, "Are you hiding something from me?" He shook his head. Smiled faintly. "Nothing. Just tired, that's all." But I knew then. He was on the edge of a choice that would unravel everything. The largest, most devastating mistake of his life. He spent that night pacing. Replaying decisions in his head. Weighing consequences. Imagining outcomes. And still, a reckless part of him believed he could control the fallout. That no one would be hurt. Yet small signs of warning were everywhere. The missed calls. The forgotten promises. The fleeting glances of concern from friends and colleagues. And the subtle unease in his brother's eyes. He opened his laptop. Scrolling through documents. Reviewing numbers, emails, messages. A small oversight would have been harmless. But combined with other small errors, the stage was set for disaster. By the time he finally sat down, exhaustion pressing in, the tension was unbearable, and deep down he knew nothing would ever be the same. That night ended quietly, but the calm was deceptive. It was the final moment before the chain reaction, the precursor to the mistake that would define him. And as he finally closed his eyes, sleep coming reluctantly, a single thought lingered, a whisper of doubt. What if I've gone too far? The morning started like any other. The sun filtering through the blinds, birds chirping outside. A sense of ordinary calm. Then, the email arrived. The one message that would shatter everything. He opened it slowly, eyes scanning, heart racing. Stomach knotting with a premonition he had ignored for weeks. The figures didn't make sense. Discrepancies he had overlooked, mistakes he had assumed were minor. But now, glaring back at him, undeniable. Shock settled in first. Like a heavy fog. Every muscle in his body freezing. He reread the message. And reread it again. Hoping against hope that it was a mistake. But the truth hit him like a hammer. He had mismanaged funds, ignored warnings, and overlooked a simple calculation. And the result was catastrophic. Millions lost. Trust shattered. His reputation on the line. He felt numb. Disbelief clawing at him. Denial whispering in his ears. This can't be real. Someone must be lying. He called his assistant. Tried to clarify. But the answers were chillingly consistent. The mistake was his. Entirely his. Unavoidable now. Panic began to creep in. His mind racing. How did I miss this? How could I be so careless? What will everyone think? And then the fear. Not just of exposure, but of losing everything. The life he had worked so hard to build. By midday, whispers began. Colleagues noticing the tension. Rumors spreading like wildfire. And he realized, even if he tried to hide it, The world would soon know. He fled to the office balcony, leaning against the railing, staring at the city below, heart pounding, mind spinning, the consequences racing ahead of him. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. And yet, buried within the panic, a spark. A dangerous, reckless thought. If he could fix this, if he could manipulate the outcome just right, maybe he could save himself. Maybe he could make it seem like someone else's fault. The seed of revenge, or perhaps self-preservation disguised as revenge, was planted. By late afternoon, he was alone in his office, papers scattered around him, his laptop glowing with the evidence of his error. The more he studied it, the more he realized the gravity of the situation. Every misstep, every ignored warning, all pointing to the same conclusion. This was catastrophic. He thought about confronting the truth head-on, confessing, but fear twisted his courage into hesitation. The thought of losing his career, his reputation, his family's pride. It was unbearable. So a plan began to form. Small at first. Just ideas. Whispers in the back of his mind. What if he could redirect blame? Cover his tracks. Make it seem like an external error. But with each idea, the stakes grew higher, and the danger became more real. If anyone finds out it was me, everything collapses. He stayed late that night. Lights dimmed. Only the hum of the computer. Calculations, spreadsheets, emails. Trying to craft the perfect defense. The perfect deception. Every scenario he imagined carried risk. A single misstep and it would all be exposed. Yet the thrill of the possibility, the adrenaline of outsmarting the inevitable, kept him going. He thought about colleagues, mentors, the executives, who might notice the inconsistencies, and the social danger, the whispers that could reach his family, his partner, all the lives that could be affected. But the more he planned, the more obsessed he became. Sleepless nights, constant calculation, moral boundaries blurring, replaced by the urgency of self-preservation. By dawn, he had crafted the first step, a calculated move that could shift the blame. Temporarily at least. A risky maneuver, thrilling in its audacity. And as he leaned back in his chair, staring at the city waking below, a strange calm settled over him. The first move was ready, and the consequences, though unknown, were inevitable. The next morning, he made his move. Carefully calculated, precise. Each step designed to redirect suspicion, to mask the truth. He sent emails, adjusted reports, subtly shifted numbers. Nothing overt, just enough to create confusion, to buy time. For a moment it worked. Colleagues glanced, questioned, but no one suspected him directly. The illusion held. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Each action carried a hidden cost. Each deception a potential trap. He watched reactions closely. Every raised eyebrow, every pause in conversation. Analyzing, calculating, anticipating challenges. Trying to stay 2 steps ahead. But the first ripple hit sooner than expected. A trusted colleague noticed an inconsistency. A question asked quietly in passing. Are these numbers right? Panic surged. He smiled reassured. Deflected responsibility. But inside, adrenaline coursed. The fear of exposure was real now. Tangible. Even at home he couldn't relax. The guilt mingled with thrill. Lying to those who loved him most. Hiding behind charm and logic. Each day became a balancing act. One wrong word, one wrong move. And it could all unravel. The consequences touching everyone he cared about. Yet with the danger came a strange exhilaration. The thrill of the game, of manipulating reality. Of watching the world respond without knowing the truth. He began to anticipate outcomes like a chess player. Moving pieces, calculating reactions. Every colleague, every family member, every friend a part of the game. And then the first major challenge appeared. A senior executive called, reviewing the numbers in detail, pressing for explanations. The potential for exposure now immediate and terrifying. He kept calm, answered confidently, deflected questions with logic and charm. For now, the storm had passed, but he knew the next ripple would be bigger, the next consequence unavoidable. And late at night, staring at the ceiling, exhausted, he realized the truth. The first move had succeeded, but it had set into motion a chain reaction. A series of consequences he couldn't fully control. The days that followed were tense. Every glance, every word felt like a test. He could sense suspicion lurking around every corner. Even minor mistakes by others now seemed magnified, each one threatening to expose the truth. And each time he had to react quickly, cover tracks, redirect attention, maintain control. His relationships began to fray. Colleagues growing wary, friends noticing distance, family sensing unease. But no one could pinpoint why. The fear was constant, the adrenaline unrelenting. He couldn't sleep, couldn't relax. Each decision carried weight far beyond its size. He replayed the events over and over in his mind, analyzing every step, every email, every conversation, searching for a misstep, a weakness. And then came the confrontation. A colleague cornered him in the office, voice low, accusing. "These numbers don't add up. I need the truth. Now." He smiled, deflected, charming, calm. But inside, panic surged. The first real threat of exposure. The first real consequence of his mistake. Even at home, the tension followed. His partner noticing nervous tics, fleeting expressions of worry, the quiet questions that went unanswered. He felt trapped between success and failure, between maintaining appearances and facing the inevitable truth. Every interaction became a test. Every decision a potential trap. Every day a battle against exposure. Yet, amidst the fear, he felt the thrill of the challenge. The dangerous game of control, deception, and survival. And late at night, alone in his office, he realized the truth. The mistake was no longer a single moment. It had become a living, breathing chain of consequences. Unstoppable, unpredictable, and growing heavier with each passing hour. By now, the consequences were impossible to ignore. Every email, every conversation, every interaction was a reminder of what he had set in motion. He began to see the full scope. The financial loss, the damage to reputations, the strain on relationships. All because of one reckless choice. Pressure built like a storm. Colleagues pressing for answers. Managers demanding explanations. Friends and family growing suspicious. And he was forced to navigate each challenge with caution. Each step forward felt like walking on a tightrope. One misstep and it would all collapse. And yet, he couldn't stop. The momentum carried him forward. The first move had been executed. Small, calculated. But the ripples now reached further than he could control. Minor mistakes spiraling into major consequences. He found himself planning his next steps. Even riskier, more audacious, each designed to regain control, to protect himself, to survive the storm he had unleashed. And the danger became personal. Every interaction a threat. Every glance a potential exposure. What if someone finds out it was me? That thought haunted him day and night. Late nights in the office turned into early mornings. His mind constantly racing, strategizing, covering, adjusting, playing a game where failure meant losing everything. Even at home, his secret weighed heavily. The silence between him and his partner growing. The unspoken tension thickening. Every word, every glance a careful calculation. By the end of this period, he realized the truth. The mistake was no longer just a single moment. It had become a living, dangerous force. And he was trapped in its wake. And as he sat alone, staring at the city lights, The thrill of control mingled with fear. He knew that the next move would define everything. Success or failure, redemption or ruin. The day arrived. The day everything he had been avoiding would finally surface. He walked into the office, every step measured, every breath controlled. Colleagues whispering behind closed doors. Eyes flicking in his direction. Anticipation thick in the air. Then came the meeting. Executives, colleagues, even his mentor. All seated, waiting. The tension almost unbearable. One of them spoke first. "We've reviewed the reports. There are discrepancies. Can someone explain this?" Silence. Heavy, suffocating. And all eyes turned to him. He opened his mouth, paused, recalculated, and spoke with calm authority. "I've reviewed it myself. There was an error. I am taking responsibility." Murmurs rippled through the room. Questions followed. Accusations thinly veiled as inquiries. A senior colleague leaned forward. "This isn't just an error. It's a pattern. How long has this been going on?" His heart pounded, mind racing, but he maintained composure. "It was unintentional. Series of oversights. I accept full responsibility. And I will make it right." Then came the twist. The final piece of the puzzle revealed. Someone had known all along. Someone had been tracking each move, each misstep. And now they confronted him. "You think you can fix this by admitting one part? The truth is bigger than you realize." Shock hit him. The betrayal, the exposure, and for the first time, he felt completely powerless. He looked around. Colleagues watching, mentors judging. The full weight of his choices crashing down. His mind raced. Every possible explanation, every excuse. But none would shield him from the truth. And then, cutting through the tension, a voice he hadn't expected. "I warned you, but you wouldn't listen. Now everyone sees what I always knew." It was his closest ally. The one he trusted most. And betrayal cut deeper than any consequence could. He felt a surge of emotion. Anger, regret, disbelief. All colliding in a violent storm. Short, raw lines escaped him. "I didn't think it would come to this. I tried to handle it. I never meant for this to happen." But it was too late. The ultimate confrontation had arrived. The truth laid bare for all to see. He could feel the weight of every eye in the room. Judgment, disbelief, disappointment. Questions came fast. Accusations sharper than knives. "How could you let this happen? Did you think no one would notice?" He swallowed hard. Every word calculated. Yet every explanation sounded hollow. Every attempt at defense met with cold scrutiny. His ally stepped closer. Voice low, cutting. "You should have listened when I warned you. Now everything is lost." A wave of shame washed over him. The realization that he had not only failed himself, but everyone who trusted him. He tried again. "I can fix this. I will make it right. Please. Just give me a chance." But the room was silent. Too heavy with truth. No one could undo what had been revealed. Then came the final blow. The public acknowledgement. The official declaration of accountability. He was no longer in control. The power he thought he wielded evaporated, replaced by exposure, vulnerability, and the cold reality of consequences. Even his own thoughts betrayed him. "I should have seen it. I should have listened." Every warning ignored. Every sign overlooked. Emotion surged. Rage, guilt, fear. All intertwined. Short, sharp bursts of emotion erupting in his chest. A colleague, normally quiet, spoke with brutal honesty. "This isn't just about numbers. It's about trust. And that's gone." He nodded silently. No defense left. Only acknowledgement. Only the bitter taste of what he had created. Outside the office, whispers already spreading. The world beginning to turn against him. And he understood. Life would never be the same. And in that moment, stripped of pretense, of power, of control, he faced the ultimate truth, the mistake of his life, and the unavoidable fallout it demanded. The tension was unbearable, every heartbeat echoing in his chest. He watched as colleagues whispered, glances exchanged, the atmosphere thick with judgment, the truth now unavoidable. A senior executive stepped forward, papers in hand. This is the full extent of the errors. The consequences are severe, and accountability must be upheld. He nodded slowly. No words could mask the guilt, the realization that everything he had worked for hung by a thread. His ally, the one who had trusted him most, spoke again, short-cutting. You had everything, and you threw it away. Now everyone sees it. Even your family will hear soon enough. The words landed like blows, and for the first time he truly understood the magnitude of his actions, the ripple effect of one fatal mistake. He tried to defend himself. I didn't mean for this. I was trying to fix it. But it was useless. The confrontation complete. The consequences fully revealed. The betrayal of trust laid bare. Even outside the room, whispers had turned into murmurs. And he knew there was no escaping the fallout. Every relationship, every professional connection, now tainted, trust shattered, and the world watching, waiting for his next move. He felt the anger rise, not just at himself, but at circumstances, at the cruel inevitability of human error. But beneath the anger, a small, fragile realization that no manipulation, no clever plan, no deception could undo the damage. The only path forward was acceptance, and facing the consequences head-on. The room felt smaller, every glance a judgment, every word a reminder of his failure. And in that silence, broken only by the ticking clock, he finally saw the full weight of what he had done, the mistake that defined him. The room was silent, heavy with unspoken truths, the reality of his actions settling in like a stone in his chest. His mentor's eyes bore into him, disappointment and hurt intertwined. I believed in you, trusted you, and this is what it leads to. He could feel every word cutting deep, each syllable a reminder of what he had lost. Short, raw words escaped him. I misjudged. I miscalculated. I never meant for this to happen. But the damage was done. The exposure complete. The truth laid bare for everyone to see. Even as he spoke, he realized there was no way to reverse it. No clever plan left. No trick to regain control. Only the bitter reality of consequences. The ally who had confronted him earlier shook their head. Some lessons are learned too late. Some mistakes can't be fixed with words. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. The pride and arrogance he once carried now crushed under guilt. Outside, the whispers had grown louder. Colleagues discussing, friends speculating. The news spreading faster than he could react. And yet, amidst the chaos, a strange clarity emerged. The realization that hiding, manipulating, or deflecting would not help. Only facing it, accepting it, learning from it, could allow him to move forward. For the first time in days he breathed. Slow, deliberate, acknowledging the mistake fully, the confrontation complete, and the path to redemption, though uncertain, beginning. The room emptied slowly, conversations fading. But the echo of his failure lingered. Constant reminder. A heavy but necessary truth. And as he walked out, head bowed but eyes open, he understood. Life had handed him the harshest lesson, and the only way forward was through it, not around it. The office was quiet now. The confrontation over. The fallout unavoidable. He sat at his desk, staring at the empty chair opposite. The silence a heavy reminder of what had transpired. Colleagues moved around him, whispers still circulating. But the intensity of the storm had faded, replaced by a sober reflection. He thought about the choices that had led him here, the moments of oversight, the reckless decisions, the pride and stubbornness that had blinded him, and he realized the cost was more than professional. It was personal. Trust, respect, relationships, all fractured, some beyond repair. He reached for his phone, hesitated. Every call, every message now a potential minefield. Connections strained. People hurt. But there was also clarity. A strange peace in acknowledging the truth, accepting responsibility fully. He began the long process of repair, small steps at first, reaching out to colleagues, explaining, apologizing, making amends where possible. Even simple gestures mattered. Phone call, meeting, candid conversation, slowly rebuilding what had been broken. But he knew some damage was permanent. Some bridges could never be crossed again. At home, the tension remained. His partner watching carefully, the silence heavy with unasked questions. He spoke cautiously, honestly. I made a huge mistake. I faced the consequences. And I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. She listened, tears in her eyes. And for the first time he felt a sliver of hope. That forgiveness, though difficult, might be possible. Nights were still restless. Memories of the confrontation, the exposure, the betrayal, replaying endlessly, but now tempered with understanding. He journaled his thoughts, reflected on decisions, learned lessons carved deep into his consciousness. Lessons about pride, oversight, trust, and humility. Even as life moved on, deadlines, meetings, responsibilities, he carried the weight of what had happened, permanent reminder. And gradually, slowly, he began to rebuild. Professionally, personally, cautiously, deliberately, with the knowledge that nothing could be taken for granted again. Weeks turned into months, and the initial shock began to fade, replaced by quiet introspection. He learned to live with the consequences. The trust lost, the relationships strained, the reputations altered. All reminders of the cost of one mistake. But in the midst of regret, he discovered resilience, a deeper understanding of responsibility, the importance of vigilance and honesty. He still faced whispers and sideways glances, still felt the pang of lost opportunities, but he no longer hid from the truth. Each day was a conscious choice. To act with integrity, to be accountable, to prevent history from repeating itself. He returned to work with humility. Every decision weighed carefully. Every action measured against past errors. Home, conversations became more open. Honesty replacing silence. The bonds slowly mending. Tentative, fragile, but real. He reflected often, alone in the quiet of night. The mistakes replaying like lessons etched into memory. And in those moments he understood. Some mistakes define us. Not because of the failure itself, but because of how we respond. He realized that peace was not about erasing the past, but embracing it, learning from it, and moving forward. Some scars would never fade. Some relationships would never fully heal. But life demanded action, growth, and acceptance. He felt a mixture of emptiness and resolve, the hollow ache of what was lost, balanced by the strength gained from facing it all. And finally he understood. The biggest mistakes teach the hardest lessons. Lessons about humility, courage, and the fragile nature of trust. The storm had passed, but its imprint remained. A constant reminder to tread carefully, to value honesty, and to never underestimate the consequences of a single choice. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Shocked, regretful, inspired, or empty. Have you ever made a mistake so big it changed everything? Or faced consequences that seemed impossible to recover from? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the darkest truths and hardest lessons of life.